I'm quite affiliated with MAP. I think my brother actually came from MAP as well last year. Managed to raise a couple, $100,000. He's now in Indonesia actually, so things are looking good for him. I graduated Mechatronics from Melbourne Uni in 2009, December. So that's about 6-7 years ago now, so I feel kind of old. So I was in Honeywell for a few months and then decided not to like the job, and I went and see Matt, the CEO of Freelancer, and then Matt said, come over and have a chat, and here I am, 5 years later. The company itself has been doing pretty well. We went public 2.5 years ago actually, straight on my birthday as well, so that was kind of awesome. Started drinking at 7 a.m. And then $1 billion company popped up, right? And then now we're valued at about 700 mil. So things are doing pretty well for us. We raised a couple of times through institutional placement and whatnot. But the best thing about us is I think we've been profitable since then, and things have been doing pretty well for us sustainably. So the unique thing about growth at Freelancer is if you go to unicorn startups, if you look at unicorn startups in Silicon Valley and whatnot, growth is a small component of the company, right? You have a little growth team, right? And then they do this little growth hack and stuff like that. In Freelancer, it's very different, right? I think I was just doing my math. 95% of us actually report to growth, right? I don't know a lot of them, but I deal with the PMs and the data scientists, but even customer support are under growth team. The only thing that's not under growth team is security, for the obvious reason, finance, right? And everyone else is under the growth team. There are a few functions: data science, product management, customer experience, sales, talent, even on HR. And then we do data-driven talent acquisition and whatnot, and a few others that I can't remember right now. But that's how we are at the moment. So before I start with how we run growth at Freelancer, just a little bit of quiz. So everyone knows bots, Shopify, Wix, yeah? The unicorns, as we call it right now, right? Just a little bit of question. How much do you think this unicorn spent on marketing in 2014? So these are some of the profiles that share the same characteristics as Freelancer, if you may. So bots, market cap about $1.6 billion. How much do you think they spend? 10% of revenue on marketing? 20? 50? 100? 500? You laugh. Yeah, no. Bots, 104%, right? Shopify, 54%. Wix, 80%. Now, this all doesn't make sense on paper, but actually it's what's happening right now. Right? If I go to Indonesia, where I'm very familiar with the startups there, like billboards, like there's a company right now that literally is spending $60 million with no revenue a year on marketing, right? And you thought bots is crazy, 104% of revenue on revenue, right? What about Uber? I can tell you, just do the math there, but it would be about 200 to 300% of the marketing, of the revenue on marketing, right? Uber is now valued at what, $80 billion, right? And they just hit what, 1 billion rides 2 or 3 months ago, I believe, right? Just do the math there, right? One ride gives you what, $3 maybe, right? So that's $3 billion worth of revenue for $80 billion valuation. How crazy is that, right? So I thought, I like to call Freelancer as cockroach, right? We're not unicorn. Right? Unicorn is never real, right? Cockroach, on the other hand, is really hard to live, but it's really hard to die as well when the winter is coming, or whatever the guys in the Silicon Valley do. And this is also the presentation that I presented in Growth Hackers Conference as well in February. I was invited to open keynote there as one of the only non-Silicon Valley companies to share about how we run growth at Freelancer. Unlike Australia, I didn't know that opening keynote was a big deal in US, right? It was 9 a.m. I popped up, I thought, how many people could it be, right? 10, and then I walked out and there were like 600 people, right? And then like VP of growth from Airbnb, Zillow, and those guys, right? I even make a stupid joke that no one really likes, was like, if there's a bomb, the whole tech is dead, and then no one really enjoys that. So that didn't went out too well. But anyway, so how much do you think Freelancer spent? 10? All right, 3 years ago we spent 0%, right? Because I don't like spending money for revenue, right? My Asian value told me to get the cheap acquisition channels, free ones, right? Freelancer spent 15% of the revenue in first year, 2015, right? So everything else is organic. Because ultimately this is what it is for: organic traffic, referral traffic, virality, and so on, right? And this is essentially what happens in Silicon Valley as well right now. People are talking about SEO all over again, right? People are talking about virality, right? And that conference was probably the best conference that I attended the whole time, and I learned a lot about SEO and SEM and whatnot. So, when you raise money, do not spend that money on revenue, right? Try to make sense of this LTV and CPA. LTV stands for lifetime value, which is revenue, right? And CPA is cost per acquisition, which is how much you spend to acquire a user, right? This all sounds very, very simple on paper, but trust me, there's so many companies out there that it's okay to spend 150K for 100K worth of revenue because we're gonna get it in the next 10 years, right? This is a dream, right? But please be very, very mindful about this. Freelancer is running this way, sustainable growth as we call it, is because we're very, very pedantic about this thing, right? I have a person who has a PhD in NLP, natural language processing, who runs this whole marketing team because I want us to be more data driven about these things, right? Marketing is a black hole that you'll be surprised on how much you can spend without knowing how much the impacts of those are, right? So if you have those money, right, my first advice is please don't go to the marketing because there are a lot more things that you can do to increase growth. So where should your growth come from? Growth-driven company culture, as we call it at Freelancer, which is pretty much everyone is growth-driven. Engineers, they are not rewarded because they're writing good code, right? We don't want that, right? Good code is a proxy for revenue. They're rewarded because the metrics of their companies or their products are doing well, right? So a matchmaking team, for example, at Freelancer, right? The metric that they are responsible for is award rate, which is how many projects get awarded after they get posted. And that is how the engineers are rewarded. That's how the designers are rewarded, 80%, right? 20% in the functional ones. And then data science, I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And funnel optimization, which is the biggest, lowest hanging fruit that no one has ever thought of. How many of you guys are startups here? Everyone? All right, it's a lot. I've asked this question to all the e-commerce startups. When was the last time you optimized your checkout form, right? And 80% of the times I'll never optimize it since last year, or I've never even optimized it, right? Checkout form is the biggest, lowest hanging fruit that you could ever do, right? Because, say for some reason it's about 30% conversion rate if you're lucky, right? Just by doubling that, that's double revenue, right? So think about this conversion as the most important thing, right? If you Freelancer has done really well because we tweak a little bit, the local maximization as we call it, right? People who don't know about this thing will be, we want to aim for absolute maximization, right? But you got to scrape the barrels, right? And this is what I meant by cockroaches, like you got to scrape the barrel to live, right? And this funnel optimization is ultimately what keeps Freelancer growing at huge double digit year on year, about 80% from the last 6 years, right? And our revenue has literally almost doubled every year, right? So what do we do? The team, talk about this, right? It's such a cliche, isn't it? Always hire the best, hire people smarter than you. But I actually live and breathe through that, right? Like I put ego out of the rooms, right? I hate it so much when my engineers say, oh, I can't, why are the engineering questions so hard? Even I can't get in. It's like, it's not about you, buddy. It's about the next people, right? They are smarter than you, right? I really don't care. I put ego all out of the windows, right? Literally 5 years ago, right? I want to hire people smarter than me, and I mean it for real. Right? Because ultimately, I don't want to do anything. I haven't got to that part yet. I'm still working about 80, 90 hours a week. But ultimately, I just don't want to do anything, right? Like my salary will stay the same and the company will grow, right? I'll play Facebook all day or whatever, right? But do not ever compromise on talent. This is how Freelancer works right now. And if you're in a big company, this actually might work as well because every teams are autonomous, right? What that means is that Freelancer is divided into multiple product teams, 15 to be exact, and they're all autonomous. They're moving without being dependent on any other teams, right? So the team is essentially a self-formulated team in such a way that you don't depend on any other teams to move autonomously, right? And they work on metrics that are autonomous to them as well. So when award rate goes up, I know exactly who to give credits to, right? Or when award rate goes down, I know exactly who to blame, right? And when project goes up, I know exactly who to go to, right? And these teams are the autonomous teams, right? And the best thing about this is that Freelancers didn't invent this, right? Everyone does this as well. Everyone is arriving to this unconventional truth through means of our own, right? Spotify has the same thing. They call it squad, right? And every other, and you can go to all the other unicorns that do exactly the same thing or quite similar. All right, so growth-driven teams. I talk about metrics all the time. Data trumps opinions, right? And this is what I see in front of my desk. I have a desk, sitting on a very small desk. There are like 3 people in the 2 desks, me, Matt, and someone else. I've been sitting with Matt for the last 5 years. Kind of like want to get out of that guy. But this is what I see, right? And this, I blur the whole thing out just to make sure you guys, so there's acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, referral, resurrection, right? That's a user cycle, right? And then up on top of that, there's like employer, freelancer, right? And by just looking at that, I know exactly how the health of the company looks like. And even better, I track every single goals on the daily basis. So I know whether my revenue is on track on the daily basis, right? If it's not, it will turn red just like that, right? And I use that to all my autonomous teams. I say, if you're not on track, then put red, right? And then I do my hoverboard 1 round to see who is not on track and who is on track. I mean it for real, I'm not kidding, right? And then I will focus on the people that are not on track, right? But the best thing about data and transparency is that I then can manage up to 500 people because I just need to look at the metrics, right? If metrics are doing well, you leave them the fuck alone, right? If metrics are not doing well, then you go on and help them, right? And that's the management style of mine. Transparency. All metrics, including revenue, is accessible for everyone in the company, literally. Even people in Manila, right? We have offices, hold on here. Offices in Sydney, Manila, Vancouver, London, Vancouver for skiing, London, Buenos Aires, Jakarta, and Orange County, and Palo Alto, right? That's there are like 10 offices, and everyone is managed to assess these metrics, which we build internally. Monthly and quarterly goals have to be quantifiable metrics, right? And this is a good thing for you guys in startups as well. Always have a goal, right? I see there's so much difference between people who have a goal and say, this month I have to hit this metric. This month I have to this metric, compared to people that just like, okay, I want to build this product really, really well. Who gives a damn about well product, right? Right? It's a good problem to solve when you have good metrics, when you have good traffic, but when the product is no longer, when the product is not optimized. No one cares about optimized product, right? You build an MVP and that's it. If I have to choose 3 things, right? It'll be people, product, and market, right? If I have to choose 2 out of 3, it'll be people and market, right? The market size has to be as big as Texas or California, right? The people have to be awesome. The products, those are the least of my worry. So, and you guys will be stuck in this 3 years or 4 years of developing products without metrics. So don't do that, right? Just push it out there, get the metrics up, right? The product could be shit, that's okay, but hey, it's a good problem to have now because now you have people visiting your product, right? And now it justifies you to improve the products. And that's how you do iterative improvement. Every member in the team is accountable for their team's metrics. Performance is strongly rewarded based on that, as what I said, and you sit the product team together, not functionally. This is how the product team looks like. Talk about the data science team. Data is everything for Freelancer. As a result, we put a lot of effort and investment in data science team. We have about 20 of those now. I think about 6 of those are university medalists in UC, Melbourne Uni. I think we have a few from Stanford, UC Berkeley. We even have one Australia's best cash game poker player. I don't know why he wants to join us. He was making $4 million last year, but hey, couldn't hurt about learning a few things about poker with some real shit. We'll skip this, but what I meant was just don't hire Donald and hire Warren Buffett, but it's nothing. We love hiring awesome graduates, so for you guys, right, for startups, the best thing is to hire awesome graduates. Why? Because graduates are hungry, driven, and passionate, right? And they learn, and you know what, we're in this world, we're in this tech world, no one really knows what the hell is going on. Right? That we're figuring out as we speak, right? Like 5 years ago, no one knows what data is, right? My job title was data analyst, right? And I thought it wasn't cool, so I changed it to data scientist, right? And I thought it wasn't cool enough, so I changed it to marketing scientist or whatever, right? No one really knows what's going on, right? So the best thing is just to hire awesome graduates, engineering preferably, right? And then solve this like engineering problems, and everything else will be solved. All right, tracking. Do not be most companies. Why is that? Because you only track 3 things. Traffic, users, and revenue. At Freelancer, we try to track everything. Right now, you're gonna say, oh, it's really hard to track everything. It's really not that hard, right? I went to a company of my friends. It took me 1 day to build internal tool for him, right? And now that tool can track 15 million events a day. It really isn't that hard, right? So track everything. And this tool that we have at Freelancer, you can track literally anything. You can track people hovering for 5 minutes. You can track people I don't know. You can track people waiting for 5 minutes, how long this guy waits in the form, whether they're typing, and so on. It's really that easy. It's all JavaScript manipulation. It isn't as hard as you think it is. This mixed panel, KISS matrix, and all that stuff, those stuff are nothing, right? And you know what the worst thing about using KISS matrix, mixed panel A, B, C, D, E, F is that the data are all everywhere, right? And the successful data is when the data is all compounded into one, and you manage to be identifying through one unique identifier. So then you know what they're doing from the start until the very end, right? So it's really easy to do it, like, trust me, right? Mixed panel, KISS matrix, optimizing, and all that stuff. At the end of the day, you're gonna decide and say, hey, enough is enough, or just build it my own, right? It's all raw data, you hire engineers, and then they'll turn it into insightful insights. You can track your funnel too, right? In Freelancer, funnel is what? Project posted, bidded, awarded, accepted, completed, and so on, right? But you could even track it into a form. A form is a funnel, right? Because people are typing, right? And then if you track everything and see what they're typing, then you know where the friction is, right? And then when you remove that friction, then your conversion is going to increase, right? The best thing is to reduce every single steps to make sure that you complete the CTA, right? Let me ask you a question. Checkout form. I still don't know why the normal thing for checkout form is to ask for the freaking address. Who the hell cares about their address? Get their money first, right? After you get their money, then you ask their address, right? The conversion rate is going to double. But no one thinks about it that way because people are just copying other people, right? But why do we want their address, right? Like,
To deliver the product.
Why don't you ask the money first and then get their address? Wouldn't that have better conversion rate? Trust me, just turn that around and see what the conversion rate looks like on that one. Because at the end of the day, it serves the same purpose, doesn't it? And trust me, when you get their money, you can ask them to do whatever they want. You can even ask their mom's address and they'll give it to you, right? All right, CPA, LTV, I talk about this. The company is essentially focusing on two metrics and two metrics only, right? CPA and LTV, right? Your marketing team is about reducing your CPA, which is cost per acquisition, which is how much does it take for you to acquire a user, right? And everyone else is building features to increase LTV. Really that simple, right? And you could even do it on an abstract basis. This was acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, referral, and resurrection. And use that, model that on any websites or any startups that you have, and you'll be able to find out where the leaky buckets are. And that's where you focus. Right? Don't focus on all the 6 things, right? Trust me, just for 1 month and say, okay, from now on, I'm just gonna focus on activation. Because apparently there are 1 million users that come to my site, and there are only 10 that are activated. Then focus on that, right? So that gives you an idea, a framework. It's really not that hard, it's not rocket science, right? That gives you a framework to then decide which one to prioritize. Because that is the most important thing as a startup. Right? Your ideas are probably as good as your competitors' ideas, right? The 2 things that are really important for you, differentiating you and your competitors are, 1, prioritization, which one to do first, and 2nd, speed, who do it faster, and that's it. Everyone's ideas are the same, right? Everyone wants to create an AI, everyone wants to create a chat, and so on, but the only 2 different things are the speed and the prioritization, and that's what the product managers are for. Attribution analysis, you can do a lot of attribution analysis through that. I'll skip this. But how should you track? Google Analytics, the best tools in the world, right? I didn't have my own tool. I didn't have engineering until 2 years or 3 years ago. Google Analytics allowed me to do so many things, right? So try to stick to just one tool if you have to, right? If you can't, then build it your own. But try not to have so many tools because at the end of the day, this data is your gold mine. You need to keep it in-house. Right? I like to think about running data scientists like investment bankers, right? Running marketing team like investment bankers, because these channels, the way channel works right now is that it's dying, right? It's shortening, right? The ROI of the channels. You need to figure it out first at the very start, right? And once you figure it out, then everyone else will follow, and that's when the ROI falls through, right? So whoever figures it out first usually gets the most channels. I remember at one time, Freelancer was making a user at a CPA of 5 cents in Facebook. There was a time when no one else cares about Facebook acquisition, right? Now you try that, it's like $5, right? No one goes anymore. So the idea is always to tap onto channel first that no one else has tapped into, right? And that's why you even need a team to just go in and find those new channels once your team is big enough. So now you know your metrics, right? You know what metrics are important and what's not. So what's next? Track your competitors, right? Your competitors' metrics are as similar or are as important as your metric. Because why? Because you know when things go up, and then you know what things that bring the metrics up, and you can copy them. Right? We're not Google, we're not Facebook, we're not LinkedIn, right? We don't need to be innovative. We need to copy what works. And that's what I do at Freelancer, right? I didn't know about these autonomous teams until I figured out on my own. I went to Airbnb, I reverse engineered their job board, and I'm like, oh, holy shit, there are like so many product groups. And I went to LinkedIn, I reverse engineered their job board, I scraped their job boards, and now I know more about product groups of Airbnb than anyone else outside Airbnb. But that's it, you know? Knowing what other people have done is what's gonna keep you, not being innovative just about right now, right? There will be a time when you guys are going to be a Google, hopefully. But for now, just copy what works and just be fast, right? And that is what matters. So track your competitors' metrics, because ultimately those metrics will tell you which one to focus on as well. Does anyone know Showpo.com? Yeah, Showpo, yeah, a good friend of mine. $10 million in sales. They're really awesome, right? They do very well in Instagram and whatnot. But, all right, so I thought, hey, you know, you'll be saying that, oh, it might be hard to actually track a specific website. Right? How do I track all this stuff, right? Because a website is a website. But the reality is everything is available on the internet, right? So I thought, hey, I went to showpo.com the other day and I was like, you know what? Just by looking at this website, I know exactly how I can track how many items are sold. I know exactly by just looking at this website, I know how much revenue they make, right? And how many items are they listed? What are their best-selling items and so on? And you wonder why. So this is a checkout form, or sorry, add to cart form. So I thought I'll play around with the quantity, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out of stock, right? So what does that tell you? Then you know what the stock looks like, right? Try to script that every minute, right? You just be able to see that. And if they restock, they go up, right? From those graphs, what can you tell? You can tell literally anything, right? You can tell how many items are sold, what their best-selling items are in case they're lying, how many items are listed, right? How much revenue they make. And you could use this information to go on and compare that to your products and say, hey, what are the items that are best selling that I do not have yet, right? Or when things suddenly go up, it's like, oh, what marketing channels that they have done and we should copy. But the reality, if you look at your competitors, it's pretty much the same thing, right? It'll take you 3 days top to track your competitors' metrics, at least on the top lines. All right, most companies do not test. We build features when we build, and we never really know how successful the features are. Yes, we all know that this feature is gonna make our lives awesomer, right? But the most important question is whether it will or not. Sorry, the most important question is not whether it will or not. The most important question is how much it will, right? Because ultimately all your ideas, I'm sure, will increase the customer's values. But which one will increase the most with the least amount of effort? And that's what you need to think about. So we have to A/B test, right? Correlation, causation, oh my God, if I have every nickel on what this thing is, people talk about correlation and causation. Let me just iron it out here. Correlation is easy, right? You chuck in variables into R tools or MATLAB and it'll tell you how correlated A to B is, right? The problem is causation, right? But in internet world, right, luckily Freelancer has about 20 million users soon and 30,000 users at any one time. It's so easy to test for causation. You just A/B test it, right? So I need you guys to find out what your aha moment of your startups are, right? And that comes from the correlation that you prove through causation. Right? Facebook found that aha moment. We talked about it a long time ago, right? Where stickiness is through inviting 7 friends. Freelancer found the aha moment, right? Where the first bid comes in within the first 3 minutes, it's going to double award rate, right? So if the first bid comes in within the first 3 minutes when a project gets posted, it will be double likelihood that a project gets awarded, right? So that's correlation. So how do you test for causation? That's what we did, right? So we test for causation, we put half of the group, do nothing on it, and the second half we just push to make sure that people bid on the projects. And then we track whether it will increase award rate or not, and increase, right? And revenue double in a matter of 1 week, right? And Freelancer did about almost $40 million last year in revenue, right? So if revenue double like that, everyone can go home, right? And that's what I did on that day. So always form hypotheses and test it by linking to success metrics. All the features that you think about, you need to think about the success metrics. Right? It's just so interesting when you look at these metrics. I was talking to my brother the other day. He had this sales problem where he's like, oh, I don't have enough people to call and trying to upsell selling cars, right? Buying cars. And then I found out, okay, how do you call them? Apparently the way he's calling them with limited resources is first in, first out, right? So someone submit inquiries and then he's gonna go on and whoever submit first, right? That has a conversion rate of about 30%. I said, why don't you just turn it the other way, last in, first out? Right? Because that means the last people that you call are going to be more likely to convert, right? Suddenly their sales double, right? How amazing is that, right? Like, and this is what's so cool about internet companies, right? You could just do all this stuff and you can see the results in a matter of seconds or minutes or days, right? But this is why I love working in internet space, because you can just test anything, right? I do a lot of more tests on like how people should sit, whether we should put people into a room, right? How do we sit people? How do we do metrics, right? How do we, like, yeah, so many experimentation or organization as well. And that's what's so amazing about internet. Almost all things have to be A/B tested, including your new features. So when you have features, just think about this. How do I A/B test this, right? And the next question is, you talk about optimizely, you can test on one metrics, but ultimately what's more important is that you test it on multiple metrics. And even better, you run the A/B test, you did not know what metrics is going to increase, but even better, you can go back and see what metrics is going to increase. And that has so many insights, man. I kid you not, right? You know, so again, my advice is build your own internal A/B test tool. It really isn't that hard. Take you 2 days at most. I'm not lying. It is not that hard, right? And you need to A/B test on multiple metrics because the insights that you get are just so amazing, right? Mobile testing is a bit harder, but you know, you can still do it. This is how A/B test looks like at Freelancer. So you know, you have one A/B test, you have many metrics that you track, and those are the Bayesian approach of it. I have a team of 3 data scientists just to work on how fast we can A/B test, right? So that, you know, they work on the speed of the A/B testing. So they come up with formulas and theorems on like whether I should model it on beta binomial distribution or normal distribution and whatnot, so that we could A/B test things a lot faster, right? So this might not be applicable for you just yet, but don't worry about all this stuff, right? Let me tell you how you should A/B test internally. You have user ID, yes? All right, odd and even, right? That makes it randomized sampling, yeah? And just test it like that, right? And now, from now on, you could do SQL on just even and odd. And you could even do descriptive analysis on all the SQL metrics that you couldn't think of just yet. That's it, right? So it's not, optimizely is not like some powerful magic to A/B test. Just test it on user ID, odd, even, that's it. Conversion rate. This is what wins all the time, right? Because conversion rate is everything and everywhere. Now, if you think about it, every page that you have in your websites, every screens that you have in the apps, does it serve a purpose, right? If it does, then you need to track their conversions. That's all it is. Lowest hanging fruit for any company that where I have advised on is always on conversion rate, right? You'd be surprised. In Freelancer, before we came in and put data as part of the, you know, the values, 3% of the people who arrive on post-project page, post-it project. We up it up to 21% now. That's 7x, bro, right? 7x more revenue just by tweaking, right? So if you haven't done anything on your CTA page, do it. That is your lowest hanging fruit, right? And that's what really awesome. All right, another Sherpa. I talk about this auto track form. So imagine if you could track everything and see what they're typing and see where the frictions are, then you'll be able to know where the frictions is, and then you'll be able to remove it. The idea is the less steps you have, the better it is for your conversion on a rule of thumb. The third one I want to talk about is be fast, and this probably matters more towards the startups. We talk about fast, right? We talk about page speed. Everyone knows this. The faster the page you have, the more conversion you have, right? It's no rocket science. But what about speed to perform your CTA? Have you ever tried that? What about when you arrive on that page and then you need him to do something? Have you ever tried how long it would take for him to do something? Because if you try that, and trust me, if you half that, your LTV is going to double, because that's essentially how it is, right? We millennials have such a short attention span that, you know, if you put everything for them to do within that first 5 minutes, your LTV is going to double, right? So if you're in e-commerce, have you tried from discovery to add to cart, for example, right? Or how long does it take to fill up the sign-up form? You know, because no one has tried this, right? And this is probably the most important thing that you could do right now, right? Track how long it would take to do something. And that's what Freelancer is all about, right? We're like, oh my God, it takes us 2 weeks to award a project. Let's cut it to half an hour. And then suddenly award rate triple, right? Because if you just cut everything into one when their attention span is still there, right? That's when the conversion is going to increase, right? Same with my brother's startups, right? First in, first out, average 2 days to get contacted, right? Last in, first out, now somebody actually takes 2 minutes to get contacted. And then those people with 2 minutes actually get converted a lot more because the attention span is still there, right? We have so many websites to visit now. We have Facebook, Instagram, SMH or DH, right? And everything else, right? Like, you know, you're gonna forget about freelancer.com very, very soon, So the best way is just to put everything into one within that first 5 minutes, especially when they come initially. All right, fast is always good, right? So we talk about conversion. We talk about how long does it take to perform a CTA. But speed as a habit is the most important asset for us to win, right? What I mean by that is development speed, right? How long does it take for you to develop a certain things, right? And I think startups sometimes get into this dilemma that my product is not cool enough. My product is not awesome enough. Who the hell cares, right? Let the data tells you that, right? Because ultimately the most important thing is speed right now. Nothing else matters, right? Because with speed, even if you release it, you know what went wrong and what not. Now I'm not saying that just release shit product, right? I'm saying release an MVP product, but don't dwell onto it too much because ultimately there's no data. It's just opinion against your friend's opinion, against your other friend's opinion, right? Data trumps all opinions, right? Data eats opinions for breakfast. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna make Freelancer faster. So I went to 500 startups. A lot of friends of mine are in 500 startups. I'm like, hey, Freelancer is so slow. How do I make it faster? It's all easy. Put them into a room and feed them noodles. Those are the exact 2 sentences he gave me, right? Kylie, I'm not sure if you guys know Kylie. Kylie is a managing partner of 500 startups. The guy with shorts, he's very short as well. And it's just like, the guy's just crazy, right? It's like, and I'm like, holy shit, I want to try that. Apart from the noodles things, yeah, because we give good dinner for people at Freelancer. So I thought, hey, I identify an autonomous team. I say, okay, contest team, which is a contest platform like 99 Designs. Contest has grown about 150% year on year. And I was like, hey, I'll put you into a room, right? Just increase contest over this next week. I'll give you prize if you do, right? Just stay there, just increase contest, don't worry about anything else. I put them into a room. That room is very, very important because then no one else goes to you and asks questions. Right? And then contest went up by 30% that way, right? Just by focusing on a specific metric and no one else is bothering, it really increases that. Or I create some rules around that as well. For example, there's 3 sprints a day, which means you have to have 3 deliverables every day within that group, right? So they're focusing on number of tests, right? So we do a lot of tests like saving draft contests and so on. And then this is our way of optimizing it through I score. I stands for impact, confidence stands for, C stands for confidence, E stands for effort, and then this is how we prioritize the things. So that works so well, right? I don't even have to enforce it to everyone. Everyone's like, oh, I want to do this, right? Metrics go up, I get more pay out of it, right? I get more money out of it, I want to do this. So at Freelancer now, it's now formalized. Every quarter, we have 1 full month of what we call growth focus tests, which we just focus on number of tests, just test. Right? And now we have identified the successful and unsuccessful tests. Then we do the successful tests, and then we do the next 2 months of that quarter to just do the right things right. Engineers love it, right? Because they're like, oh, now I can actually throw out the shit code, right? Because what else is more scary than technical debts, right, for engineers? Which, by the way, I still don't know what technical debt stands for. There's no quantifiable metric yet that someone could give me on technical debts, right? I would challenge anyone to give me a quantifiable metric and I'll look at it. But they love it. Right? And it makes sense because we're doing the right things right. We're just not doing the things right? It could be the wrong things. The fourth one, the last one is, if all else fails, get the machines to help you. So machine learning. How amazing is machine learning, right? Like you do a random forest classifier. By the way, if you guys don't know a lot of machine learning, just put a random forest classifier with it, right? It usually works 70% of the time. Right? Like I'm not a AI expert, but from what I heard from my data scientists is that the first thing you do is just random forest and classify it. Right? It will give you 2 things. It will give you the classifier, and it will give you the metrics that actually matter. And what can you do with those metrics? After being weighted, you can actually A/B test to manipulate those metrics to see if that increases the metric that you want to increase. So Amazon recommended system, obviously, 35% comes from there. We do that a lot at Freelancer, for example, spam classifier. Credit card fraud is such a prevalent problem in marketplace because ultimately when chargeback happens, Freelancer is liable to it, right? So we need to be able to make sure that money laundering and all that stuff don't happen, right? So we have 40 people at the time. We're like, oh shit, with the rate that this is increasing, we're gonna have like 400 people next year, right? So we can't do that, so we build a random forest fraud detection algorithm. We call it Skynet, I don't know why. Yeah, nerds. And 97% of the time it will be able to detect fraudulent users. So, and it just keep retraining. right? And give you metrics to focus on and so on and so on. Obviously, this is not the means to an end, right? Like it's not one way to solve everything. We still have like, data wrangler and people just trolling the website to make sure they catch people, but this helps a lot in terms of efficiency and effectiveness of fraud detection. So, in summary, what do you want to know? You know your data, you know your competitors' metrics. Why are we doing it, right? What does the data say? And when you do something, what are your success metrics, right? And try to execute fast and fail fast. If all else fails, get the machines to help you. It really is that simple, right? I'm not here to talk about ideas and whatnot because you probably have the best idea for your startups, but I thought this would help in terms of how you prioritize stuff. And it has helped for my brother. It has helped. I've tried to sort of help with a lot of startups as well. And yeah, I've seen results through this method and methodology. And the best thing is, all this stuff, quite surprisingly, right? I would go on and talk about this in a conference or growth startup, and then everyone else is talking about the same thing. Like LinkedIn talks about the same thing, right? Airbnb talks about the same thing. It just reiterates that everyone arrives to this unconventional truth somehow. Just like, listen to your customer sort of mindset, right? Like everyone arrives to that same mindset all the time, right? And this is the same thing, right? I remember when we built the A/B test tools, Airbnb has released the same blog that looks exactly the same. We're like, holy shit, we didn't even copy them, right? But it's exactly the same. Like even the color, right? Like, but it's just quite amazing because if you go to growth conference, like everyone is talking about the same thing over and over again. Right? So the best thing is actually to be number one in speaking list, right? Because the last ones are these guys just copy other people, right? But seriously, everyone is talking about the same thing. And I thought I want to leave you guys with that, because all this stuff that we do, right? All this sounds good on paper, but please be disciplined about it as well. Discipline is what wins, right? Like we talk about this, right? Data-driven and whatnot, but very, very disciplined about it, and everything else will be fine. Thank you very much. Any questions?